They was not sharing all the facts with the members of Rajya Sabha. Some alert was given, but the Meteorological Survey of India, if my information is right, they were giving only green alert even on 28th and 29th. Similarly, red alert is the highest form of, warning. That was never ever given by any central government agencies. Then the NDRF team, 9 teams were sent to Kerala, not on the basis of the information or decision of the central government, but on June 14th, state government demanded that 9 teams of central forces should be sent to Kerala in the eventuality of some untoward things happening. So it is upon the request of the Kerala state government, unlike what Mr. Home Minister claimed in Rajya Sabha. So
no, but
I don't think this is a time to apportion blame.
Mr. Baby, did your government move to evacuate people to safer areas? The question arises, could you have evacuated people to safer areas a little bit earlier?
This particular panchayat, Meppadi panchayat, on the basis of the direction given by the state government, the panchayat asked all resorts in the panchayat to close down and evacuate. This is the information I am in possession of now.
Okay. Shashi Tharoor, as you're seeing this battle play out, because you've been in Parliament, the Home Minister has made this statement inside Parliament, almost suggesting that it could have in some way been prevented. What's your sense? Because there are the likes of Dr. Madhav Gadgil, the famous ecologist, who have said that this is a man-made disaster because of the quarrying, the habitation going on in ecologically sensitive areas. And therefore, there's a worry that the Kerala government, or indeed any government in Kerala, whether Congress or CPM, has not seen the warning signals that this ecologically sensitive Western Ghats is being treated with a certain cavalier disdain.
Right. I'm glad you raised the broader issue, but before we get into that, let me just once again say that this is a tragedy that everyone is deeply pained by, and I would like, as far as possible, to stay above politics on this issue. 200 deaths, 500 houses destroyed, still over 200 known to be trapped. It really is an awful, awful situation, and more rainfall is predicted. So I think we have a big issue on our hands. Now, Rajdeep, you've raised a good, big, broad question. And that big, broad question is, should we actually be having people living in areas which are prone to this kind of disaster at all? And the short answer is, given Kerala's density of population, it becomes very difficult to avoid that people go and settle wherever they can find land and the prospect of a reasonable livelihood, usually through farming. Now, it's interesting, I've seen Mr. Gadgil's report that the 3 villages that have been destroyed in the course of this horrible landslide were not listed by Mr. Gadgil in the ecologically sensitive areas. And therefore, what's striking is that we have a genuine problem in the Western Ghats generally, but it's not always possible to predict where disaster may strike. Mr. Amit Shah in the Lok Sabha this afternoon, when I was there, you had quoted his Rajya Sabha statement. In the Lok Sabha this afternoon, he claimed that IIT Delhi had issued a report 6 years ago recommending that 4,000 people be relocated from the very area where the tragedy occurred. Now, I have not seen that report, and I would like to take the Home Minister's word for it. If that is true, then questions can well be asked of the government as to why they did not take that report seriously. But it remains to be seen in what form or shape that report was drawn to the attention of the state government. But let us understand some things that go beyond state government, beyond central government. One is a serious issue of climate change. We have seen huge challenges in Kerala. You remember, Rajdeep, the severe drought in 2015, the devastating Oki cyclone in 2017, which affected my constituency, significant floods in 2018 and 2019. So there is no doubt about the ecological vulnerability of Kerala, and landslides are just one symptom of that vulnerability. I've been reading that the global warming has really heated up the Arabian Sea, and this is creating deep cloud systems, creating extremely intense, heavy rainfall that is concentrated in a shorter duration and thereby increases landslide risks. The prediction for this weekend from the meteorological department was about 60 millimeters of rain. They got 320, Rajdeep. So this is what was more than the hill that collapsed could take. It was already saturated by the rain. More rain came, the whole thing collapsed. Now you've got the human angle that you mentioned, the fact that the forests of Wayanad district have been disappearing under cultivation since 1950. Plantation cover has gone up massively. I've heard figures like 1,800% increase in plantations, whereas until 1950s, around 85% of Wayanad was just forest. Hardly any people. The population has gone up. Now, can we say don't go and live there? And if so, on what grounds? And if so, what better can we do for them? And when Mr. Shah says move 4,000 people out, move them where? To do what? How would they live? These are questions that any government would have to grapple with. Now, we were in opposition. It's very easy for me to join others in taking pot shots at the communist government. But I think we have to ask these questions as human beings. What solutions do we find for the human beings affected?
You know, but I know you're saying that you don't want to get it caught in the political debate, but the fact is, for example, the BJP is also questioning your leader, Rahul Gandhi. He's been the MP of Wayanad for the last 5 years. They're saying if Rahul Gandhi knew that these are landslide prone areas, as is known by, as is the case, then did Rahul Gandhi raise sufficient red flags? You see, every politician at the moment is admitting that there is a problem. It's an ecological problem. It's a problem of climate change. It's an environmental catastrophe. It's also about illegal quarrying in some of the areas. Rahul Gandhi would have known some of these issues. Did he red flag them? Have we all become wiser after the event? Has it taken a tragedy like this, Dr. Tharoor, to almost become a wake-up call?
It is certainly a wake-up call, but let's make a couple of things clear. The executive responsibility for dealing with such matters is very much with the state government and not with the MP. I'm not saying this merely to defend Rahul Gandhi. He has raised a number of issues to do with Wayanad during his time, but in this particular case, you have to understand the scale of the challenge. About 50% of Kerala's terrain consists of slopes exceeding 20 degrees. I mean, it's almost fertile ground for soil erosion and landslides. There's loose topsoil that's covering the rocks. Many of us have seen videos from the 2018 floods of entire hillsides collapsing even then. It's not that this is completely new or unpredictable. If you wanted an early warning, you had it then too. There are heavy rains, so it's saturating the soil with moisture. Then landslides are triggered. I'm told there are 30 districts in India that have been listed as most landslide-prone districts in the country. 10 of those are in Kerala. 10 of those. And the fact is that in these circumstances, we have a state that is facing a very fundamental issue of ecological fragility. And I don't want to minimize the dangers, but nor do I want to imply that it's easy to solve all this with a warning from an MP in a speech.
No, but the fact is, MA Baby, Shashi Tharoor says executive responsibility rests with the state government. Now, the CPIM has been in power in Kerala for years now. This is your second term in office. You all have been in power since 2016, so for the last 8 years. Now, what has the Kerala government done? The charge is being made that the Kerala government has turned a blind eyes to many of the illegal encroachments, to the hotel resorts that are coming up in a fragile area, to the illegal quarrying, allegedly, according to the likes of Dr. Madhav Gadgil. So the buck really must stop with the state government. Pinarayi Vijayan's government, sir, with due what has it done to stop these illegalities? What has it done to ensure that you recognize the fragility of this area and the potential dangers and hazards of landslides as a result?
You see, the steps taken by Pinarayi Vijayan government, I don't think that all the details can be narrated now. But no illegal activity in the ecologically fragile hill areas have been permitted by the state government. I am very sure about that. There are no allegation with proof that any illegality, any encroachment in the hilly, ecologically fragile areas have been sanctioned or permitted by the state government. This is a far larger issue. Beyond politics, we will have
but
to
none of
address
the
these
plans,
questions.
since the Gadgil report of 2011 pointed out the dangers, no government, whether at the center or state, has been willing to notify it. The fact is the rules are in place. You all have been unwilling to notify it. Now, clearly this is a political hot potato. No one wants to take on the challenge of achieving the balance between environment and livelihoods. And the Kerala government cannot say that they haven't, that they've done enough. They haven't, sir. The truth of the matter is the Kerala government hasn't done enough on the ground.
No, so far as Gadgil report is concerned, there is not much difference on Gadgil report's implementation aspects between the UDF and LDF. Now, no doubt, with all that had happened now, we will have to have a second look at Gadgil report, the areas which needs to be implemented by building consensus among political parties between LDF and UDF and other political forces. We should seriously think about implementing the relevant aspects of Gadgil report. But this is not the time to debate and spend time on that. Now we'll have to fully focus in rescue operation, rehabilitation, and whatever is immediately needed from the government side.
You know, Dr. Tharoor, you mentioned climate change. How seriously does Parliament and do our MPs take the issue of climate change? Is there a need? How many more disasters will it take for us to wake up to what climate change is doing to this country? Last year it was in the Himalayas, in Himachal Pradesh, where we saw unprecedented flooding. This year we are seeing it in Kerala, not for the first time in recent years. We are seeing increasing cyclones across the Arabian Sea, in the Bay of Bengal. How many of our MPs are really sensitized, our policymakers, to what climate change could do to the future?
You're quite right to point this out, Rajdeep. There is an ongoing tension between the wishes of voters, who, after all, rule the roost in democracies, and the advice of experts and ecologists. When voters say, this is what we want to see from our political representative, the political representative tends to follow. Certainly in a place like Kerala, which is a very strong democratic tradition, you cannot be indifferent to the interests of the people concerned. Now, at the same time, there have been an astonishing number of landslides already. In Wayanad, there were landslides during the 2018 floods. There was a 2019 landslide in a place called Puthumala, which claimed 17 lives. There were landslides and heavy rains in 2021. Again, more loss of life, but in much smaller numbers than today. And in 2022 as well. So we've had enough warnings that the system is not going to be able to deal with what we are seeing in terms of the weather changes that have come with climate change. Now, we can explain this to the public. Kerala has an educated public, as we saw during things like the combat against COVID. You could take the public along with the government's measures and restrictions. And I think this is where, as Mr. Baby says, we do need a political consensus so that no side takes advantage of making some difficult decisions, for example, to relocate people. the Home Minister mentioned in the Lok Sabha 4,000 people should have been relocated. But as I said to you, I mean, that requires political consensus, that requires resources, that requires land, that requires livelihood possibilities, all of which you need to be able to provide before you can relocate people. You can't relocate them to nowhere. This is the challenge in a densely populated state like Kerala. And I just want people to understand the scale of the challenge. We are not going to be blithely sort of coming up with solutions on paper that need to be implemented in practice, and that too in the face of resistance from the very people whose lives are at risk, but who at the same time feel their livelihoods would be unsustainable without a better solution. There's also early warning, Rajdeep, which I must say the Home Minister mentioned that in the Lok Sabha. I saw him outside and briefly mentioned to him that I've been reading that this remote sensing, which is what we're doing through ISRO and through bodies like the National Remote Sensing Center, that's not enough. You need actual on-ground sensors to be able to anticipate landslides. Remote sensing is not going to be able to give you enough warning to move people. And that's why I think if Mr. Baby says there was no red alert to move people, it's probably because we're reliant entirely on remote sensing. So there are things like that we can use to improve technology. Get sensor grids on the ground. Get real-time data gathering from these on-ground sensors. And then of course, some data modeling, the kinds of things that technologists can do for us to enable us to have more effective and realistic early warnings. So people are not permanently relocated, perhaps, but every time there is a credible warning, you move them out. And then, of course, if the hillside really collapses and their houses are gone, they have to be relocated anyway. So these are things where at least we can save lives. Right now, we're looking at some real challenges. Again, I'm not an expert on all this myself, but there are apparently conditions developing in parts of Wayanad that the experts call soil piping, which is, air being filled in voids in the subsurface. And that is what leads to landslides. And there's an awful lot of these surface voids being formed as a result of the recent weather incidents since about 2015. Now, in these circumstances, this is not going to be the last piece of bad news, Rajdeep. There will be more landslides in Wayanad. And I'm not even an expert, I'm just telling you on the basis of what I've read. So that's the situation we have to be prepared for.
Okay, let's leave it there. Dr. Tharoor and M.A. Baby, as I said at the outset, our thoughts today, our prayers are with the people of your home state of Kerala, of the people of this country. It has been a monumental tragedy, and we hope that the lessons of Wayanad are learned. It's in that spirit that we brought the two of you together. I really do hope that there will be both accountability for the mistakes that have been made, as well as the hope that some of those mistakes that can be controlled by humans at least will be avoided in the future. So thank you both very much for joining me, M.A. Baby and Dr. Shashi Tharoor.
Thank you.
Okay, we've heard from the netas. Let's hear from the expert. Because I'm joined by someone who is arguably one of the country's leading ecologists. He's someone who's been talking about the dangers of what's happening in the Western Ghats and has been calling Wayanad a man-made disaster. Professor Madhav Gadgil, who made a path-breaking report on the ecologically sensitive Western Ghats. Appreciate you joining me. You've described, Professor Gadgil, what has happened in Wayanad already as a man-made disaster. Do you really believe that this was a disaster that could have been avoided given the kind of heavy rains and flooding that's taken place in this part of Kerala, what Kerala has gone through to the last few days? Is it really avoidable? At the end of the day, this is nature's revenge.
Yes. Now, as far as the rain is concerned, even that in part is because of increasing aerosol load in our atmosphere. It is now well known scientifically that India is the aerosol capital of the world, and rock quarries are particularly responsible for dust, very fine dust, which increases this aerosol load. And as the aerosol load increases, what happens is that the rain, instead of falling in drizzle over say 4 hours, comes down very suddenly as intense rain in bursts of half an hour, 1 hour. So even the intensity of the rainfall could have been moderated had we not been going in for all this quarrying of rocks all over the Western Ghats.
May I? May I?
Apart from that, of course, yes, to
Professor,
an extent, Kerala has always been experiencing heavy.
Professor, since you mentioned that word quarrying, which you say is one of the biggest dangers to the Western Ghats, it's been illegal quarrying across the Western Ghats. Your report had said in 2011 that you wanted to declare nearly 75% of the Western Ghats as ecologically sensitive, including this part of Kerala and Wayanad where the tragedy took place. Would you agree that it's very difficult to actually implement such a report? There is a battle between people who have to earn their livelihoods and the environment. Are you telling me that this entire belt has to be freed of quarrying, of tourism? Because that's something that the government, both in Kerala and the centre, seem reluctant to do. Is your report feasible?
No. This is a complete misinterpretation. See, actually, as per the mandate given to us, this whole area is ecologically sensitive. What we had said that this is not practical and this should not be attempted in a broad-brushed fashion. That therefore the Western Ghat areas should be divided into 3 zones. One is ecologically highly sensitive, then of middle sensitivity, and thirdly of low sensitivity. And we have asked for particularly stopping of quarrying and mining also in only the highly sensitive areas, not everywhere. So that is a misinterpretation. Now, yes, the Vaithiri area where today this has happened and the Puthumala landslide which happened few years ago in the similar area are areas with high slopes and very heavy rainfall always, and they are therefore very prone to landslides anyway. Now there have been increasing human interventions. It is a complete mistake to think that these are to increase the ability of people to eke livelihoods. Not at all. The interventions have been, for example, that around the tea estate there are lots of tourist resorts where they are building lakes and so on, which are further increasing the burden on the geological structure. Nobody is really making any question about that these resorts, which are meant for the opulent and the rich section of the society, are creating much employment. Of course, they are doing nothing of the sort. The people who have died, which you will actually see, these are tea estate laborers. If I have been there, I have personally seen these, what happens. They are forced to live in miserable huts in ravines. All the good land is used for the enjoyment of the tea planters and their friends. They are forced, these people are forced to live in ravines and dealt with very poor wages and conditions essentially akin to slavery. And it is them who have got washed. This time also all the bodies are of these laborers in these huts close to the ravines. So don't talk about livelihoods being a concern. Not at all. It is the money made by the rich that is the concern of the governments.
But you know, the point remains, Professor Gadgil, that 11 years or 13 years after your report, every government has systematically diluted your recommendations and no one wants to implement it. No one wants to, it appears at least, be disrupting what you are calling for. Even the church in Kerala has been reluctant to notify these areas as ecologically sensitive. So this battle between environment and livelihood or environment and politics, is this a battle that really can be won can the church, civil society, politicians realize the damage that is being done? Because there are, in the end, I maintain, human habitation out there. Can you drive out people?
See, I do not know quite about all the church issue and how it was turned
So the church has
against
opposed this.
The report. That's another story. But increasingly today, actually, very recently, the Archbishop, one of the senior archbishops, I don't know, there are maybe more than one in Kerala, he invited me to be a joint convener of a panel on human rights in Kerala. And he thinks that this negative interventions in the environment are very much against human interests. So the church is also changing their attitude. And as far as the governments are concerned, it is very clear. I have checked also. I have spent a lot of time in Kerala in the field. They have told me that the different political parties have distributed these illegal, mostly illegal, rock quarries amongst themselves. This is owned by Kerala Congress, that is owned by a CPM politician, that is owned by a BJP politician, and so on. So,
Professor Gadgil?
it is their interest that these rock quarries make enormous profits.
Professor Gadgil, you are making, may I stop you? You are making a very serious allegation. You are claiming that the entire rock quarrying going on in areas like Wayanad is linked to political parties, whether CPM, Congress, even the BJP, that land is being parceled out between these politicians. I have heard similar stories in my home state of Goa, how land deals are done, again in violation of environmental rules. Are you telling me quarrying in Kerala is being done at the behest and patronage of political parties, including the ruling CPM?
Absolutely. I certainly will stand by that statement. That is the truth. I am a scientist. I have no political affiliations, and I only stand by reality, what is true on the ground, and that is the position on the ground. This is very clear about the Goa mines also, and it is not just me. You might have seen there was a Justice Shah Commission on illegal mining in Goa, and they have said that illegalities in mining has led to the mine owners making some 35,000 crore or some such obscene amount of illegal money. So you can read the Shah Commission report, and the kind of allegations, as you say, I am making, they are made by a
Professor Gadgil, you know, we referred for a moment to Goa. I want to come back to Kerala, and I want a solution from you. What is the solution that you as the country's top ecologist have to offer, given that we've accepted these are landslide areas? Give me a concrete solution which you believe is workable to try and minimize what we are seeing year after year now.
Well, one has to begin with accepting that certain areas are ecologically highly sensitive. As I said, not that whole of Kerala is to be treated like that. In our report also, we have said that there are areas in Kerala where you may have permission to quarry and so on, provided that there is a proper consent from the local Gram Panchayats. But these areas, like this Vaithiri and Meppadi, where the recent disasters have happened, or the Puthmala disaster happened, they are the ones in which all further human interventions should be stopped. Yes, and the Kerala government is in fact proposing further interventions in this area. For instance, in this very area, a tunnel to link to Mysore.
Right.
Now that tunnel would involve lot of creation of rock rubble, blasting, that will further send shock waves and make the fragile hills already, which are fragile, further prone to landslides. Kerala government wants to actively promote such activities, and yes, I will stand by whatever you call my allegations. These are facts.
You know, I just want to know, have you raised these issues that you're raising with me today about illegalities taking place on the ground with Rahul Gandhi? He is the member of parliament of Wayanad. Have you raised it with the Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan? Have you raised it with Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India? Have any of these top leaders responded to your report in any manner, or have you raised it with them?
No. I will tell you what, it was very interesting. The way the politicians changed their attitude towards me. As soon as our report, Western Ghat Ecology Expert Panel report, was submitted in 2011, after that, all politicians decided that Madhav Gadgil, you should keep completely aside. You should never have any contact with him. You know, there is this famous line in Kerala's one of Shakespearean plays, Yon Cassius, he thinks too much, such men are dangerous. So they decided, Madhav Gadgil, he thinks too much, such men are dangerous. So no, there is no question of my contacting or asking any politician anything. They don't want to have anything to do with me.
I'm going to leave it, Professor. You know, amidst all the noise that politicians create, it's always good to have an expert who tries to cut through that noise and tells us the truth. You've told us today that you believe that there is illegal quarrying going on, that the politicians know it, they have a stake in it. And I just wonder whether any of them will wake up to what you've told us and at least implement parts of your report that really demand that the ecologically sensitive, wonderful Western Ghats be protected at all costs, and we don't see the kind of terrible disasters we've seen in Wayanad at the moment. I appreciate, Professor Gadgil, for you to come and share your wisdom with me here on the show. Thank you so much. I want to turn there to another story that should again shake us up. The Delhi High Court today lashing out at the Delhi police and the MCD. The court saying the civic body has become a joke while questioning the police over the arrest of a passerby driving in the SUV, but no arrests yet made in the basement deaths by the MCD officials. The High Court rejected the SUV driver's bail plea, saying that he had driven the car at such speed it caused large displacement of water. The bigger question is, who is accountable? The driver of that car or those who were guilty of willful negligence allowing basements to be used in the manner that they are? 3 young lives are lost. What does the court have to say? Listen in.
The tragic flooding at Rao's IS coaching centre in Delhi exposed criminal negligence. The Delhi High Court, while hearing a PIL, has taken a tough stand over the apathy and has slammed the civic authorities. The High Court said that the Municipal Corporation of Delhi had become a joke and summoned its commissioner on Friday. Taking a swipe at authorities, the court said the MCD needs to build infrastructure, but it's bankrupt and can't even pay salaries. The court also pulled up the police for its probe. The court labelled the investigation as strange, questioning the police on the arrest of a passerby and none from the MCD.
We are obviously very disappointed that the bail application has been rejected. We were very hopeful that Anush would come back home tonight. None of us want to spend another night in jail for no fault. But we are also at the same time very hopeful. Sooner or later, justice will prevail.
Students gathered in large numbers in the national capital on Wednesday, continuing their protest to justice.
As of now,
now they are yet not happy with the responses that have come in from the state system. They suggest that they want a concrete response, post which only they will move from the hunger strike. Since yesterday they started the hunger strike, some of the students today have now gone to meet the MCD commissioner. This is in the while that the Delhi police was requesting them to end their protest. To just give you an understanding, the Bada Bazaar stretch has also been, the barricades have been removed. The Delhi police has also started slow movement of traffic on this stretch. Meanwhile, Vikas Divya Kirti, a teacher and owner of Drishti IAS, broke his silence on recent deaths of 3 aspirants. Divya Kirti claimed that the issue of students' safety is more complicated than it appears.
ऐसे मामले में कोई एक बलि का बकरा सबको चाहिए होता है, उससे चीज़ें थोड़ी आसान हो जाती हैं। प्रशासन के लिए आसान हो जाता है कि हम बच गए, एक का नाम लगा दो। समाज को भी एक सीधी सीधी बात समझ में आती है कि अच्छा एक आदमी मिल गया, यही जिम्मेदार था, तो वो तसल्ली मिल जाती है कि चलो हमें दोषी मिल गया। वजह सबकी अपनी अपनी है, लेकिन सबके पास एक सुविधाजनक नाम है कि उसको गाली दो।
The court's sharp observations underline the gravity of the situation and need for accountability. So far, there are no signs of accountability being fixed for the tragedy that took place in Delhi. With Shreya Chatterjee and Nalini Sharma, Bureau Report, India Today.
Let's take a break at this point. When we return, we'll bring you some happier news, and it's coming from the Olympics in Paris. All the latest highlights on a day when India has again done reasonably well. We'll tell you why. You're watching the news today. News without the noise.